McKenzie Morgan, you can remain seated for the moment. You're in court today to be sentenced for one offence, which is the possession of information likely to be of use to a person engaged in terrorism. You were born on the 8th of January of 2008, and so you turned 18 just a few days ago, and you have no previous convictions. I'm going to have to set out in some detail how you come to be here and how I've decided on your sentence. And I'm afraid that some of it might be quite difficult to follow, and I know that what you're most anxious to know is what your sentence is going to be. And so I hope it will help you if I tell you right now that I will be sentencing you to 14 months detention in a young offender institution. And at the end, I'll explain precisely what that means. Dr. Hales and Dr. Cunning are uncertain as to the risk that you now pose to others. You told them that you don't now have thoughts about hurting other people, but the youth offending team, using an assessment tool, have assessed the risk posed to others as high. You're also a danger to yourself because you self-harm and you have thoughts of suicide, and you're also at high risk of harm from other people because you have autism and you're vulnerable to being bullied or being groomed and radicalised. All the psychiatrists say that you have got complex needs, but you're not suffering from an acute, treatable mental illness. They also say that it will help you to have a clear end date for your sentence so that you know exactly when you'll be going home. A hospital order will have an uncertain end date, and so on balance, all the psychiatrists agree that a sentence of detention is actually preferable. In essence, what it means is you have to make sure that the police have got details about where you're living and so on. And you're subject to those for the next 10 years. I've almost come to an end, McKenzie, so will you stand up, please, and I'll tell you what the sentence is formally. Thank you. If you hadn't pleaded guilty, the sentence would have been one of 21 months detention, but I give full credit for your guilty plea, and so the sentence is one of 14 months detention in a young offender institution with a further period of 1 year which you will be on licence. You'll be considered for release after serving 2/3 of the sentence. And if you're not released at that stage, then you'll be released at the end of the 14 months. But the time you've already spent in detention on remand will be deducted automatically from that sentence. And when you are released, you'll be on licence for whatever period of time remains of the 14 months, plus an extra 1 year. And while you're on licence, it's really important that you do whatever you're directed to do by the people who are supervising your licence. And again, if you don't, then you could be returned to prison. Do take a seat for a moment.
Nevertheless, this complex and deeply troubling case represents a tragic and cautionary tale. McKenzie was not born bad. He didn't come into the world wanting to be a terrorist or aspiring to one day kill people, let alone children. As a teenager himself, when he committed the offence, he was inherently vulnerable to the malign influences that prey on our young people today, online, on the internet. The fact that he was heavily influenced by the perpetrator of one of the most horrific attacks this country has seen in recent times is a terrifying indictment of the abhorrent commentary, hateful opinion and violent images that too many of our young people are exposed to on a daily basis via the myriad of online sites, chat forums and gaming and social media platforms. That is the reality of what we are seeing in our casework time and time again. This can no longer be described as an emerging trend. It is routine now for counter-terrorism policing to investigate young people for very serious offending involving a clear online footprint. Now, I recognise there's a valid debate about legislation and the balance that must achieve. And we continue to call on big tech to play a much bigger role in this. But parents and carers also have a role to play. We must accept that our children are freely and regularly exposed to significant risk online. Look, as a father myself, I know firsthand that parents are under a lot of pressure. and monitoring what our kids do online is far from straightforward. But this isn't about censorship. This isn't about privacy or the modern day equivalent of reading their diary. Diaries were not gateways for predators to exploit. It is purely about us keeping our children safe from significant harm. I really didn't become a police officer to put teenagers in prison. It's not something I want to be doing. But if our kids can access dangerous, highly addictive and influential content, there is a very clear risk that it will destroy their young lives before they've really begun. Whilst I am hugely grateful to my colleagues for stopping a potential attack on young innocent lives, there really are no winners here today. Just a real sense of sadness that highlights the need for us as a society to really grip this issue and finally stop our young people being exploited in this way. Thank you very much.